Imagine you were faced with a choice: wealth beyond measure or honor and respect that will last for generations. What would you choose? This is the story of Adebayo, a young man from the peaceful village of Ilorin. Adebayo was known for his wisdom, his generosity, and his deep respect for his ancestors. He lived humbly in a small hut, surrounded by the green hills and sparkling rivers of his homeland. Yet, despite his modest life, Adebayo always felt something was missing, something he couldn't quite grasp. One fateful evening, as the golden sun dipped behind the hills, an old woman appeared at the edge of the village. She was dressed in tattered clothes, her face etched with the weight of years. The villagers whispered about her, for she was known to possess an otherworldly power, one that had been passed down through generations. She was the oracle of the river, and she came with an offer that no one could resist. "I have watched you, young man," the oracle said, pointing at Adebayo with a gnarled finger. "You are a man of great potential, but you have been blind to the path that lies before you. There is a choice awaiting you, a choice that will define your future. Will you listen?" Adebayo, curious but cautious, nodded. The oracle continued, "You can choose wealth beyond your wildest dreams, endless gold, jewels, and land. Everything your heart desires will be yours. But with wealth comes a price. You will lose your honor, and the respect of your people will slip away like sand through your fingers." Adebayo's heart raced. "Oh," she said, "you can choose honor. Your name will be remembered for centuries. Your legacy will be built on the respect you earn. But in choosing honor, you will live a humble life. You will not have wealth. You will struggle, but your soul will remain untarnished." The oracle's eyes gleamed, waiting for him to choose. The villagers gathered, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. They knew this was a test of fate, one that would reveal Adebayo's true character. Adebayo stood in silence, his mind spinning. His heart pounded in his chest as the reality of the choice sank in. Wealth or honor? Would he take the gold and live in luxury, knowing his people would look at him with shame? Or would he choose honor and live a life of struggle, but with his dignity intact? The village elder, Babatunde, stepped forward, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "Adebayo," Babatunde said, "the wealth of the world is fleeting. But honor? Honor stays with you until the day you join your ancestors. You must ask yourself, what do you truly value? Is it the fleeting pleasures of wealth, or the lasting pride that comes from a life well lived?" Adebayo could feel the eyes of his people on him, waiting for his answer. But how could he decide so easily? "Can I have time to think?" he finally asked. The oracle nodded. "You have 7 days, but choose wisely, for the path you pick will be irreversible." With that, she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the trees, leaving the village in eerie silence. That night, Adebayo couldn't sleep. He lay on his simple mat, staring at the ceiling of his hut, his mind restless. If he chose wealth, he could build the grandest house in Ilorin. He could buy fine clothes, feast on the best food, and travel to distant lands. But would his people respect him? If he chose honor, he would struggle. He might never have riches, but he would walk with his head held high. The next morning, he sought the wisdom of his mother, Mama Kimi, a woman known for her sharp mind and kind heart. "My son," she said, as she pounded yam for the morning meal, "wealth without honor is like a river without water, useless. But only you can decide which path is right for you." Adebayo sighed. "But what if I regret my choice?" Mama Kimi smiled gently. "Every man must live with the choices he makes. The question is, can you live with yourself knowing you turned your back on your values?" Her words weighed on him. As he walked through the village, the children ran up to him, laughing, playing, seeing him as their role model. How would they look at him if he chose wealth and lost his honor? Still, the temptation of riches clung to his thoughts like a stubborn shadow. Days passed, and Adebayo's mind remained clouded. On the 7th night, as the full moon glowed above the village, the oracle returned. She stood at the center of the village, her presence commanding silence. "It is time," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Adebayo, you must choose." Adebayo took a deep breath. He turned to his people, their faces filled with anticipation. "I have chosen," he said. The oracle's piercing gaze locked onto his. "Speak your choice, Adebayo." Silence filled the air, thick with suspense. "I choose honor." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Some villagers smiled in approval. Others murmured, wondering if he had made a foolish mistake. The oracle simply nodded. "Your path is set. Walk it with courage." Then, like a whisper on the wind, she vanished. Adebayo thought his choice was final, but fate was not done testing him. 1 year later, the village of Ilorin faced its greatest threat. A powerful warlord from a neighboring land sought to conquer them. The warlord sent a messenger with an offer. If Adebayo betrays his people and joins me, I will give him wealth beyond his dreams. But if he refuses, I will burn Ilorin to the ground. The villagers were terrified. They begged Adebayo to take the offer to save them. Adebayo stood before them, torn between duty and temptation. If he accepted, Ilorin would be spared. But at what cost? Adebayo stood before his people, his heart heavy with the weight of the warlord's offer. If he accepted, Ilorin would be spared, and he would have wealth beyond imagination. But he would forever be known as a man who sold out his own people. If he refused, the warlord would unleash his wrath, and the village could be destroyed. The elders gathered around him. Babatunde, his voice calm yet firm, spoke first. Adebayo, you have chosen honor before. But honor is not just about words. It is proven through action. If you stand with us, we will fight. But if you choose wealth, know that you will live as a traitor. Adebayo clenched his fists. He had never wanted power, nor had he wished to lead his people into war. But this was not just about him anymore. This was about Ilorin. As the sun set, the warlord's messenger waited impatiently. Well, he asked, what is your answer? Adebayo stepped forward, his voice steady. I refuse your offer. The messenger's lips curled into a smirk, then prepared to lose everything. He turned and rode away, leaving behind the promise of war. The villagers trembled. Women clutched their children. Warriors sharpened their spears. Adebayo had chosen honor, but now he had to fight for it. The village of Ilorin buzzed with fear and urgency. The warlord's army would arrive in 3 days. Adebayo knew they were outnumbered. Ilorin's warriors were strong, but they were farmers, hunters, and blacksmiths, not soldiers trained for war. That night, he stood before his people, his voice firm. We may not have gold or an army of thousands, he said, but we have something greater, our unity, our land, and our ancestors watching over us. If we fight together, we stand a chance. The villagers roared in agreement. They would fight, not just for their homes, but for their honor. Adebayo and the warriors prepared traps in the forest, sharpened spears, and trained relentlessly. As the third day dawned, dust rose in the distance. The warlord's army was approaching. Adebayo stood at the front, gripping his spear. The battle for Ilorin was about to begin. The morning air was thick with tension. Adebayo stood firm at the front of Ilorin's warriors, gripping his spear. His rich, thickly woven attire clung to his strong frame, the intricate patterns woven into the fabric a reminder of his people's heritage. Behind him, hunters, blacksmiths, and farmers-turned-warriors stood ready, their faces etched with both fear and determination. Across the field, the warlord's army loomed like a dark storm, their fierce battle armor gleaming under the rising sun. They moved with trained precision, their weapons sharp, their shields raised. The ground trembled beneath their march. Babatunde, his old yet wise eyes unshaken, stepped beside Adebayo. The first strike will decide everything, he said in a steady tone. Adebayo took a deep breath. Then let us make it count. With a signal, the warriors of Ilorin unleashed their first move. Traps hidden beneath the grass sprang to life. Wooden spikes shot upward, ensnaring the enemy's front line. Flaming arrows rained from the trees, igniting chaos in the ranks of the warlord's men. Shouts of pain and confusion erupted, but the warlord's soldiers pressed forward. Adebayo and his warriors charged, spears clashing against swords, the battle for Ilorin truly beginning. The warriors of Ilorin fought bravely, but the enemy was too many. Swords clashed, shields shattered, and war cries filled the air. Adebayo swung his spear, taking down an enemy, but sweat dripped from his brow. He was growing tired. Then, through the chaos, he spotted the warlord himself, a giant of a man draped in gold and red armor, cutting through Ilorin's warriors like a storm. If Adebayo could defeat him, perhaps the army would break. But could he win against such a man? Just then, Babatunde, the old seer, appeared at his side. Adebayo, he said, his voice urgent. There is one chance. Lead them to the river. The spirits of our ancestors will guide us. Adebayo hesitated. The river was deep and dangerous, but it was also their last hope. He let out a battle cry. To the river! Retreat to the river! His warriors obeyed, luring the enemy toward the rushing waters. But the warlord only laughed. Foolish boy, he sneered. You think a river will stop me? Adebayo gripped his spear tighter. This was it, the moment that would decide Ilorin's fate. Adebayo and his warriors reached the riverbank, their backs to the rushing waters. The warlord and his army closed in, grinning with victory. You have nowhere left to run, the warlord mocked. Surrender now, and I may spare some of you. Adebayo's heart pounded. The village warriors, though tired and wounded, stood beside him, unwavering. Then Babatunde stepped forward, raising his staff toward the river. "O great spirits of Ilorin," he called, "if we have fought with honor, if we have stood for what is right, then let the land remember us." At that moment, a powerful gust of wind roared through the trees, and the river surged with an unnatural force. The warlord laughed. "You think the spirits will fight for you." But then, the ground beneath his soldiers cracked. A hidden swamp, long forgotten, swallowed their front lines. Horses reared, men stumbled, and before they could react, Ilorin's warriors struck. With renewed strength, they fought back, pushing the enemy into treacherous waters. The warlord's army, once unstoppable, was now drowning in its own arrogance. Adebayo faced the warlord, their weapons clashing in a final duel. The warlord was stronger, but Adebayo was faster. With a swift strike, he sent the tyrant crashing into the river's depths. The battle was over. Ilorin had won. The villagers erupted in victory cries, embracing one another. They had fought not for riches, but for honor, and honor had prevailed. The sun rose over Ilorin, casting golden light over the victorious village. The battlefield was silent now, the echoes of war replaced by the whispers of a new beginning. Adebayo stood at the riverbank, gazing at the waters that had saved his people. His body ached from battle, but his heart was at peace. The villagers gathered in the square, their faces filled with gratitude. Babatunde stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Adebayo's shoulder. "You chose honor over wealth," the old sis said, his voice proud. "And because of that, Ilorin will prosper for generations come." The people erupted in cheers, chanting Adebayo's name. But Adebayo only smiled. "This victory is not mine alone," he said. "It belongs to all of us, to the ancestors who watched over us, and to the land that we have protected." Days later, messengers from nearby villages arrived, having heard of Ilorin's bravery. Instead of fear, they now looked to Adebayo for guidance. With wisdom, he led his people into a new era, one where honor, not greed, ruled. And so, the legend of Adebayo, the warrior of honor, lived on. Now, tell me, if you were in Adebayo's place, would you have chosen honor over wealth? Drop your thought below. True wealth is not found in gold, but in the honor and unity of one's people.